of quickness and speed that you should have addressed it with. So now instead of looking at that fool, that racist bastard that was spewing that nonsense towards Miss Rachel Richardson, instead of looking at that person, now we're looking at the university all
looking at you.
of a dereliction of duty.
Several days later.
Racism, prejudice still exists in this country. We all know it. We know how prevalent it is, and we know that it's something that completely needs to be eradicated. Having said that, we're not doing ourselves any favors if we bring it up and broach it when it doesn't exist.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about BYU completing their investigation into the Duke volleyball player who happens to be a young black woman, claiming that racial slurs were directed at her during the Duke BYU volleyball game. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard this story before. I've talked about it quite a bit lately, okay, because it was obviously a hoax from the get-go. But this young lady, whose godmother is running to be a judge, says that she was subjected to racial slurs while playing in a college volleyball game, right? She said from the student section, they were yelling the N-word at her. Every serve, right? Every serve, they're yelling the N-word. It became clear, okay, when you actually looked at the evidence, the video evidence, audio evidence, and the witness testimony, that she, at the very least, if she wasn't lying, she was very, very, very badly mistaken for what she thought she heard, okay? It seems to me to be a hoax, right? That's what it seems like. And the mainstream liberal media ate this up, okay? They ate it up because they can't help it, right? Anytime somebody alleges racism, what happens is the mainstream media, they quickly grab onto the story, right? And they run with it, okay? They don't care what the facts are. They don't care about the evidence. They don't care about any of that. They're going to run with it as if it's true, which is exactly what Woke Center, right, ESPN did with this story. And now Stephen A. Smith, who leads First Take, is walking back his claims after BYU completed their investigation and found that there is no evidence to corroborate the claim that this young woman was subjected to racial slurs. I want you guys to take a look at what Stephen A. Smith was saying before the investigation when these claims first came out, and then what he's saying after the investigation was complete. Take a look.
I'm saying BYU, you did it by allowing this to happen and not addressing it expeditiously, not addressing it with the level of quickness and speed that you should have addressed it with. So now instead of looking at that fool, that racist bastard that was spewing that nonsense towards Miss Rachel Richardson, instead of looking at that person, now we're looking at the university all
looking at you.
of a dereliction of duty that you put forth because you couldn't find it in yourself to address it immediately. Now we ask the question, well, why? What took you so long? What was the hesitancy about? Were you fearful of a reprimand? Were you fearful of a backlash if you had decided as a human being to do the right thing and protect this young lady and to make sure she wasn't subjected to this for a longer period of time? What was going on? What was the hesitancy about? And since we're talking about BYU, now we are looking at every university. Racism, prejudice still exists in this country. We all know it. We know how prevalent it is, and we know that it's something that completely needs to be eradicated. Having said that, we're not doing ourselves any favors if we bring it up and broach it when it doesn't exist. And that's the key that we need to focus on. I'm not saying that Duke player's allegations or assertions were false. I don't know. She says it. I'll be damned if I'm not giving her the benefit of the doubt. But I want it for future reference for everybody to understand that when we're willing to jump to race too quickly, what we do is we dilute the profound argument of racism and prejudice when it really, really occurs because people are hearing it so much, they think we're whistling into the wind. So it's something that we need to be mindful of, and we need to make sure that when we make those assertions or those allegations about other people, that they're as close to irrefutable as we can get so nobody's accusing us of making something up.
Yeah, so that's a walk back there, okay? That's a major walk back from Stephen A. Smith. But I don't think it goes far enough because he should just apologize to BYU. He should come out and say, BYU, I apologize because I demanded that you do something when the investigation wasn't complete. Because, again, anytime one of these so-called racist incidents happens, again, people don't stop and think and say, okay, what is the likelihood that this is true, right? What is the likelihood that this actually happened? They just assume that it's true, right? And they want immediate action, right? They want the straight white male individual that they believe did this, right, to be punished immediately, right? You have to be punished immediately. However, what happens when you have a system where you're guilty until proven innocent, you end up unjustly punishing the innocent until they're proven guilty. And once they are proven to be guilty, then you end up looking like a fool, right? Like Stephen A. Smith. But hey, I got to give him some credit, just a little bit of credit, because he does what the other race hustlers like Rashard Richey refuse to do. They refuse to walk back their claims when their claims are found to be wrong, right? Like Rashard Richey tried to smear a Little League baseball team of being racist for putting polyester stuffing on a black kid's head. The race hustlers like Rashard Richey said, no, they're putting cotton on his head and they're picking cotton out of the little black kid's head. When the reality is that these kids were simply trying to emulate a player on another team that they liked, and they weren't just putting the stuffing in the black kid's head, they also was putting in white kids' heads as well too, right, to try to look like the player that they liked. But again, that doesn't fit the narrative from the race hustlers. It doesn't fit the narrative. So Rashard Richey, unlike Stephen A. Smith, he doesn't have the cojones to walk back and retract his false allegations of racism. So I got to give Stephen A. Smith a little bit of credit here, right? And notice how Rashard Richey, whom, again, is one of the #1 race hustlers on the planet, at least on YouTube, he didn't cover this story. Well, why is that? It's because he probably learned his lesson from the last time he ran with one of these race hoaxes, right? He don't want, right, people like me, okay, he don't want Greg Foreman making a video about him, calling him out on his BS, right? So again, he decided, you know what, I'm going to take a step back. I'm just going to let the facts play out in this story before covering it. Because I'm telling you, if this man can push the race hustle on any story, right, he will, right? For whatever reason, he didn't do that for this one, okay? Probably because he got burned last time he did that. And that brings me to the woke South Carolina women's basketball coach, Dawn Staley, who decided to cancel games against BYU because she's afraid that her women on her basketball team would be subjected to racial slurs in games versus BYU. She went out and woke virtue signal, not because, she was trying to teach the young women a lesson, right, about how to overcome adversity or anything like that, okay? No. She came out here and canceled the games for herself so that she can get attention, so she can get praise and applause for being so brave and standing up to the racist students in University of BYU. Now, just based off my, knowledge here, I don't really know if this is correct, but I'm just using a little bit of common sense. If you're canceling games versus BYU while saying that, hey, I'm doing it because they're allegedly racist, I think that the students may call my players racist slurs based off an incident that has basically proven to be false. There's no evidence to support these claims. That to me sounds like slander, right? That to me sounds like defamation that has resulted in a financial loss or had a financial impact on BYU. Sounds to me like BYU should sue South Carolina, right? They should sue the coach because they're canceling games based off false allegations of racism, okay? That's exactly what they should do, and that is what will ultimately stop these race hustlers from making these claims with no evidence. Is when the people that get accused of racism falsely start standing up for themselves and suing, fighting back, right? So with that being said, I actually want to read more about this so that you guys get a better understanding of BYU's findings and then go from there. And you guys shouldn't be surprised because everything that they found is what I found literally day one into investigating this young woman's claims that it was a hoax. The video evidence didn't show anything. Witness testimony didn't show anything. Yeah, I mean, let's just read about it. Let's read about it. Brigham Young University announced Friday morning that following an extensive investigation, there has been no evidence to corroborate an allegation made by a Duke women's volleyball player that she was subjected to racial slurs during a game at BYU last month. The Cougars athletic department released a lengthy statement summarizing its investigation into a August 26 incident where Duke player Rachel Richardson claimed she was, quote, targeted and racially heckled throughout the entirety of the match, which then evolved into threats. Richardson alleged that BYU officials and coaches were made aware of the incident at the time but failed to act. On Friday, BYU revealed its findings and found no evidence to support Richardson's claim. Quote, from our extensive review, we have not found any evidence to corroborate the allegation that fans engaged in racial heckling or uttered racial slurs at the event. As we stated earlier, we would not tolerate any conduct that would make a student athlete feel unsafe. That is the reason for our immediate response and our thorough investigation, the statement read. Quote, our fight against racism, not against any individual or any institution. Each person impacted has strong feelings and experiences which we honor, and we encourage others to show similar civility and respect. We remain committed to rooting out racism wherever it is found. We hope we can all join together in an important fight. According to the university, officials review all available video and audio recordings of the match, including security footage and footage taken by BYU TV. The school also interviewed more than 50 people in attendance, which included Duke officials and student athletes on the team. Quote, there will be some who assume we are being selective in our review. To the contrary, we have tried to be as thorough as possible in our investigation, and we renew our invitation for anyone with evidence contrary to our findings to come forward and share it, the university said. So here's the thing. That's never going to happen, right? That's never going to happen because they don't have any evidence, right? But again, the wokes are still going to say, well, they investigated themselves and they found themselves guilty of nothing, right? But see, here's the thing. I believe that BYU actually did do a thorough investigation. The reason why is because BYU is a Christian school, they are subjected to attacks, right? And allegations of homophobia and racism all the time, okay? So it's actually in BYU's best interest from a PR perspective to do a thorough investigation. And if they actually find evidence of racism, okay, they should be transparent about it and to issue the maximum punishment, which it seems like they were prepared to do, okay? The reason why is because the race crusaders are going to say they're racist regardless. The only way for them to save face from a PR perspective is if they actually do find racism, right? They should hope they find racism, right? You find some racism, you punish it, right? They say, look, we handed down the maximum sentence against the racists, right? We have zero tolerance for the racist bastard, right? Stephen A. Smith's words. But see, again, BYU, they couldn't find anything because there is no evidence. In fact, not only is there no evidence, there's evidence to suggest that this woman is lying. There's evidence to support that her claims are not true at all. You know, it's one thing to say that, hey, we don't have any evidence, you know, audio, video, whatever, or witness testimony that can verify this story is true in the sense that we just don't have anything to go off of. We don't know whether it's true or false. However, in this case, we have evidence that suggests that it never happened at all because the audio/video evidence does not show anybody saying the N-word, right? It can't be heard. Also, witness testimony saying, yeah, we didn't hear any of that stuff. And not only was it BYU students and people that they interviewed, they also interviewed Duke officials and student athletes. So they interviewed everybody involved from both schools and found nothing. Found nothing. Again, this is why you should wait before you throw out these allegations, man. Wait till the investigation is done. Quote, there will be some who assume we are being selective in our review. To the contrary, we have tried to be as thorough as possible in our investigation, and we renew our invitation for anyone with evidence contrary to our findings to come forward and share it, the university said. Duke responded in a statement saying, quote, it unequivocally stands with its team, but did not outwardly address BYU's findings. Quote, the 18 members of the Duke University volleyball team are exceptionally strong women who represent themselves, their families, and Duke University with the utmost integrity. We stand unequivocally we unequivocally stand with and champion them, especially when their character is called into question. Duke Athletics believes in respect, equality, and inclusiveness, and we do not tolerate hate and bias. So Duke is stuck between a rock and a hard place because they know it's a lie, right? That's why they're not coming out here one way or the other saying whether or not they believe it's true. They're just saying, well, we unequivocally stand with our team. Because if they come out here and they say, well, we think she was lying, right? They're going to be called racist. Now, all the racist allegations will go against Duke, okay, for denying the racism, right? So Duke is like, we just going to, go along with it, right? Even though we know it's not true. BYU also announced that the ban on a fan, not a student from BYU, had been lifted as a result of the investigation. The man was escorted out after reportedly interfering with guests, not for shouting racial slurs. He was later identified as being mentally challenged. A BYU athletics official told the BYU Chronicle, the student-run newspaper. Yeah, so basically in a nutshell, they found no evidence that that individual actually yelled any type of racial slurs, as the Duke volleyball player suggested. And I believe that this young woman, the Duke volleyball player, she should be suspended, right? She should be suspended from school. She should be questioned, right? Preferably on national TV, the same way that she got all those interviews after she made the allegations. She need to go right back on national TV and explain why is there a discrepancy between what we heard on the evidence, what we heard in the video, and what we heard in the video/audio evidence, and what you're claiming. Explain the discrepancy. Because to me, I believe this is a hoax. There's a chance that, she heard cougar and thought she heard the N-word, right? There's a chance. But I think that the more that comes out about this story, the more evidence that suggests that this never happened at all, right? I think that this was a political stunt that was orchestrated by her godmother to bring awareness and attention to her political campaign, because she's got a whole lot of attention from this. She's been the main one throwing out the allegations. They were yelling the N-word throughout the whole game. But listen to the audio video evidence. You can't hear it at all. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. And it's a shame that she's using her 19-year-old goddaughter to promote her own politics. Right? Again, this godmother is an open racist. I done a video about it. Right? She says all types of racist things about whites, but nobody's going to be talking about that. Should we allow a judge that is racist against whites? We're talking about obvious racism, overt racism. We know she's a racist because she's tweeted racist things. Are we allowing a racist into the judicial system? Should we be allowing that? That should be the next conversation we're having. We should be questioning the godmother, and this Duke volleyball player should be suspended. Unless she can articulate why is there a discrepancy, right? So, again, with that being said, my main point is this. This is what I always say, right? And I try to stick with this myself because I got caught on this one time as well, too. Don't make claims of racism unless it is overt or you have concrete, solid evidence, unrefutable evidence that what was said was racially motivated, that it happened, that it's racist, unless you have concrete evidence. Now again, me personally, it was clear from the get-go that this was obviously a hoax, that this didn't happen, that this woman was either mistaken or just outright lying. But I'm just saying, in general, before accusing university and students and a mentally disabled man of being flaming racist, do your due diligence, man, right? Actually have some evidence to back up those claims. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.